All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk about Cyril Gane because that guy had a very impressive night last night. He beat the hell out of Alexander Volkov, a 6'7", iron-willed Russian bear, right? And I think that fight last night, well, I know that fight last night had huge implications about who was going to fight Francis Ngannou next. Certainly between the two of them, and maybe even actually next, depending on where things land with Jon Jones. Who knows what's going on there, okay? But we're going to talk about all that, right? We're going to talk about Cyril Gane's performance. We're going to talk about how we think he's going to fare against Francis Ngannou. And when I say we, I mean me and then anyone who listens to me, because you're not going to be able to argue with any of my points, son. None of my points are even going to be arguable. Or maybe they will. But if you want to argue with them, put it in the comments. Like the video if you agree, and dislike it if you don't. Just engage. Engage. Speaking of engagement, thank you guys, everybody who was on the live last night. That was fun. We were on for 4.5, almost 5 hours. That was a good time, dude. My wife and I had a really good time rapping out with everybody. So thank you to everybody who came. And Shane Burgos was on last night. What do you know about that? Shane Burgos is a killer, son. And he was on last night with his cousin, which was very, very exciting for us. I love that guy. I love watching that motherfucker fight. That is a tough bastard right there. Anyway, so Cyril Gane, though, let's talk about this real quick. So his performance last night, now going into the fight, I was very, very up in the air about who I thought was going to win. I was like, man, I can't square this. You know, because like they have such similar skill sets. They have very similar reach. Both of them are killing machines. And I think really what the fight ended up coming down to was the ability to control distance. Now, Volkov in the first round or two was doing very, very well, keeping Gane at bay with his front kick. Let me just say this, actually. 50-45 seems crazy to me. And I actually, if I'm wrong that a couple judges scored at 50-45, then I apologize. I didn't have the sound on because we were live, but I'm pretty sure that a couple judges scored that 50-45. That seems crazy to me. I don't think that that's correct. I think that giving both the first two rounds to Gane, I don't know. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. They were at least very competitive the first two rounds, right? And I think that had to do with Volkov using the front kick to keep him at bay. But where I started to really change from I don't know who's going to win here to never mind, Cyril's going to win this fight. It's still in the first, second round, but it was when Cyril demonstrated how quickly he can close distance, right? Because he's staying away because Volkov is establishing distance with the front kick. But man, how fast Cyril could close the distance when he's attacking is unbelievable. He's super, super fast. A guy's 6'5", 245 and can move like that. He's very impressive how fast he is, given his size. And both those guys have great straight punches, straight kicks, all that stuff. I mean, they were exchanging leg kicks. Both those guys' skill sets are incredibly similar. But I think it just came down to speed and accuracy. And Cyril Gane definitely was the better of the two. I'm going to just call him Cyril Gane sometimes, Cyril Gane sometimes, because I don't really know what's right. But yeah, I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with, Cyril is for sure. And I think where that kind of leaves him as it relates to the title picture is right at the very top for a title shot, obviously. I mean, that's the first thing that they're talking to him about. And obviously he used to train with Francis, so he's a known entity. Here's where we get into the more interesting conversation, or at least I think is more interesting, is who's going to fight, who's Francis going to fight next and why, right? And I have no idea because Jon Jones is the X factor. If they can get that fight done, of course, that's going to be the next one, but it still isn't done. And so there's just no more speculation to be had there. They're either going to make a deal or they're not, right? So really, we know that Jon Jones is in first position if he can get the deal done, but if not, then you're looking at Derrick Lewis or Cyril Gane. Now, Cyril Gane just fought, right? So I'm sure the UFC is antsy to get Francis in there, right? He's a big draw now. I would imagine they want to get him in there as soon as possible. At the same time, they're nervous. They don't want him to lose because they really want to make that Jon Jones fight. But if you're between Derrick Lewis and Cyril Gane, if you're the UFC, and again, I just want to make perfectly clear that 100% the UFC is considering this type of thing, you definitely want to put the guy in there that's less likely to beat Francis, okay? I mean, Derrick Lewis, he's a pretty big draw him as a heavyweight champion would be very exciting. I mean, I don't think there'd be an enormous drop off in viewership between Derrick Lewis and Francis, but Francis is this different, larger than life, absolutely, utterly terrifying individual. You also have the fact that Derrick Lewis and Francis already fought and it was a very boring fight. I don't think that would happen again, but I do think Derrick Lewis is more likely to beat Francis, right? And the reason why I would be so confident in picking Francis against Cyril Gane is because you can't, like, Cyril in and out against Volkov last night. He looked great. He's tagging him, but he's getting touched. He's getting touched, you know. You can't get touched by Francis. Like, there's just, like, more than any other fighter ever, you cannot get touched. And there hasn't been anyone that's demonstrated that he's vulnerable to heavy shots. So Cyril Gane, you have him 2 fights in a row. Rosenstreich, right? Beats him in a 5-round lopsided decision, okay? How did Francis fare against Rosenstreich? Rosenstreich literally traded 1 exchange with Francis and was unconscious. 15 seconds, and he was unconscious for the last 4, right? I mean, like, Francis, so we're just talking about power differential. You know, Cyril goes 5 rounds, dominates Rosenstreich from a skills perspective. Francis goes barreling in completely crazy, like not even, and, you know, Rosenstreich's unconscious instantly, right? Then you've got Volkov, who is a very tough guy to knock out, but Derrick Lewis knocked him out, and Gane, you know, dominated him for 5 rounds. But again, no knockdowns, no knockouts, whatever. And in both fights, well, at least certainly in the Volkov fight, Cyril got touched, man. He got touched. You can't get touched by Francis. You can't get touched by Francis. There are no people that are an exception to this rule. He's like, you know, oh, you know what? I can't believe I forgot to use this metaphor. This used to be my favorite metaphor of all time, and I just kind of forgot about it until right now, and I'm going to use it again. So when I first started the channel, I used to say this all the time, okay? So when a guy can take a lot of punishment, right? Like a guy can get hit and then just keep coming forward. It's like, you know, Shane Burgos, absolute savage, has an iron chin, right? Nate Diaz, iron fucking chin. Guys who can eat it and then just keep coming forward and they can deliver punishment. That's why they're fucking scary, man. Like, guys like that have really heavy chins are terrifying. But, okay, if you hear a story, like as an example, right? Like you hear about a fighter and it's like, dude, he took 4 straight shots to the face and he just kept coming. You're all, man, he's got an iron chin, okay? So if you heard a story that, like, you're on a construction site and you're like, man, this guy was walking through, you know, and this crane fell down and landed on his head, like a full-size crane. Do you go, oh man, like, so, like, how's his chin? Does he have an iron chin? Like, could he wear that? It's like there's a certain amount of force that if it lands on you, you're dead. You know, like, it doesn't matter what your chin is made out of. If a fucking crane falls on you, you're gunzo, okay? Like, human body can't absorb punishment like that. Francis is the crane, okay? There's a certain amount of force that he can generate that no human being can absorb. I genuinely believe that. I don't think there's a person on earth who could eat a straight shot from him. None. Zero people. Zero. Like, if Francis Ngannou hit a person with the equivalent shot that Kamaru Usman hit Masvidal with, right? Like the full extension, full throttle, hip throw, straight punch on the button. I'm going to say there's a large percentage of people who would die. A large percentage of people who would die from that shot. You know, I mean, not heavyweights in the UFC, but a big percentage of regular folks, they eat that shot from Francis, they don't ever wake up. So, you know, there's just not like a, wow, how's his chin? So Cyril, doesn't matter. Rosenstreich, doesn't matter. Volkov, doesn't matter. Anyone who eats a real shot from that guy, they're fucking night-night. You know what I mean? Now, so when you consider that, and then you consider the fact that Cyril Gane hasn't knocked anyone else out like that, he's landed lots and lots of shots. He hasn't been knocking these guys out. What are the odds that he does round after round after round and just doesn't eat any shots from Francis? Extremely low. Anyone who's going to stand with him, I mean, unless you think Cyril's going to develop like a really vicious ground game that's better than Stipe's, because obviously Francis learned how to wrestle now. So how are they going to beat him? How are you going to beat Francis Ngannou now? That's been my point all along. You know, when he was going into the Stipe fight, I was like, how is Stipe going to win? I didn't realize that he had no wrestling at the time. Okay. Now we realize he does have wrestling now. So if you're not going to be able to take him down, which most people won't be able to, how are you going to beat him? Seriously. You're going to beat him on your feet? You're going to beat Francis Ngannou on your feet? I don't think so. I think you're going to get touched at some point and you're going. So the only person that has a chance to beat Francis is Derrick Lewis. Because if Derrick Lewis, he's the same thing as the fucking crane, man. If he hits you, you're going night-night. I don't care if it's Francis Ngannou or any other superhuman, okay? If Derrick Lewis hits you with a full square shot, so he poses a much bigger threat to Francis than Cyril Gane does, in my opinion, okay? And also, if there's anyone who could wear a shot or two from Francis in order to deliver one back, Derrick Lewis is probably the guy. Like that guy, he's always in the fight. I mean, again, Francis is a different animal, but that's why I think Cyril Gane is probably here as it relates to the UFC, probably here. So like in the event that they're not going to be able to get it done with Jon Jones and they have to decide between Cyril Gane and Derrick Lewis, and they're not like, man, we got to get Francis in there inside the next 2.5 months, I think it's going to be Cyril. So that's why, son. Now I got to think of a way that I can clickbait this video because there's nothing super clickbaity about it, but whatever. We'll see. We'll see who my real fans are if I don't do any clickbait shit. Anyway, that's what I got. So if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Peace.